Today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. The team of professionals at the Tax Defense Group are passionate about helping taxpayers resolve their tax debt. Their services include basic tax preparation, tax audits, resolving large tax debt, and more. They actively represent taxpayers throughout the entire USA. If you need help resolving your tax issues, contact the Tax Defense Group. Call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973 to get started. That number again is 800-850-7973, and you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. Are you thinking about starting a business or a side hustle? For all businesses to be successful, you need a website. Writer Junkie offers website development, content writing, and SEO services for business websites. Call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them online at writerjunkie.com. We recently launched our website, ucaststudios.com. With articles about sports, special interest topics, and more, we have some cool stuff on our site. To read our content, please visit ucaststudios.com. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Lakers Outsiders podcast, brought to you by UCast Studios. I'm your host, Gary Kester, here with you as always. I'm joined again today by Honi Ahmadian, but I'm going to get to him in a second. He's still on probation for his antics on the last podcast, or the back half of that last podcast. And speaking of antics, we actually have a special guest on this pod. One of the guys with me that started this whole thing, this whole Lakers Outsiders thing, way back in 2015. We were Team Tank back then. We're joined by Anthony Irwin today. Anthony, if you guys don't know who Anthony is and you listen to Lakers podcast, you're missing out. Head over to Locked On Lakers and subscribe to them on whatever podcast platform you can find them on. Anthony, it's good to have you back on. I'm just glad I won't have to carry Honi so much in this podcast.
And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the Team Tank podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, and fucking let's go.
Oh, I'm on probation.
See, Anthony's
Am I not supposed to cuss?
Anthony's got it figured out. Like, you can't be on probation if you just show up once in a while.
Are we not? Am I not supposed to cuss? I should have asked that ahead of time.
The very first time we did a podcast on Twitch, I said shit twice. So at this point, who really cares?
The Lakers are going to the NBA Finals, so who gives a shit at this point? But no, going back to Honi, I can't skip over Honi and not give him a proper introduction. Honi, how does it feel to know that I've called 3 straight series predictions perfectly accurately?
Look, as I've said this entire playoffs, I always set my expectations higher just to see if the Lakers can match them. I've said this for every round, clearly.
Yeah, every single. What was Lakers in 6, Lakers in 6, Lakers in 4. I mean, you're like kind of balancing it out a little bit. I mean, I'm just nailing it bullseye every time. Lakers in 5. So
pretty much on average, I'm about the same as you.
Not really, but that's okay. Yeah, join us in the chat. We're gonna have fun tonight. This podcast is gonna be off the rails. Let me just put it that way. And let's dive on in. Anthony, since you are here once every 3 years, I'm gonna throw it to you. The Lakers are back in the NBA Finals. First question I have: what are you drinking tonight? And second, how does it feel, man? Like 5 years ago, like I said, we were Team Tank on this damn thing, trying to get a top pick in the NBA draft because the Lakers were so bad, and now we're going back to the NBA Finals.
Well, I'm sipping that vino. That's LeBron's drink of choice. I'm a little older now, so can't quite drink those gin and tonics the way I used to back when it was a Team Tank podcast. But that's actually kind of where I wanted to start, is that so it's reached the point where, because NBA Twitter at large has to complain about something, and Lakers fans saying that, like, oh my God, it's been so long since the Lakers have been in the finals, and we came so far because we watched Robert Sacre and Ryan Kelly, like, and NBA Twitter at large is saying, like, how dare you complain about that when The Minnesota Timberwolves haven't made the playoffs in a decade plus. The Sacramento Kings continue to exist. And it's like you're damn right. We have higher standards. It does matter that we root for the Lakers and we root for exceptionalism and we root for this higher standard. And we went through the worst period of Lakers history that has ever happened. And to finally get to this point after starting with the Team Tank podcast, where we had to convince people, no, what the Lakers need to do is lose on a random Thursday night and not play Ronnie Price over Jordan Clarkson because, because Byron Scott had a hard-on for guys who could barely play defense. And like, yes, you're right. Yeah, it does sound ridiculous that Lakers fans are complaining about not making the NBA Finals in that amount of time. But Lakers fans are ridiculous. Lakers history is ridiculous. Go through the all-time best starting lineups in the history of the Lakers. It's a ridiculous franchise. This is a standard this organization has set for itself, and to now live up to it after last year, by the way, falling hilariously short of the expectations that not just come with being a Lakers franchise, but a Lakers franchise with LeBron James on it. Like, yeah, yes, I'm sorry, NBA Twitter. I'm sorry that we aren't going to celebrate the poverty of the Houston Rockets and the poverty of the Milwaukee Bucks and the poverty of damn near every other franchise in the entire NBA. We are going to puff our chests out because we went through an entire rebuild in the amount of time it took for Danny Ainge and all of his assets to fall short of the NBA Finals again. Yeah, I'm going to celebrate this one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. And the thing that I tweeted this out yesterday that cracks me up is that, like, I'm hoping NBA Twitter is learning. When it comes to Lakers Twitter, if you're going to talk smack, Lakers Twitter does not forget anything. So you better be ready for the clap back because it's definitely going to be coming your way. So, Honi, let's talk about this game today, man. It was kind of a weird game. I kind of, with the way LeBron closed this thing out, which, by the way, it's nice to just say, or nice to just remind people that the Lakers are not the Clippers. We actually could finish off this Denver Nuggets team, and I know Jamal Murray's hobbling around out there and whatnot, but LeBron, when it came down to it, came to winning time, like he said earlier in this series when he was shutting down Jamal Murray, got it done, and it gave me like some vibes, a little bit of Kobe in game 6 against the Suns in the Western Conference Finals, where the Suns were kind of reeling the Lakers in because Sasha Vujacic got that stupid foul on Goran Dragic, and it flipped the game, and then Kobe just slammed the door. LeBron kind of did that tonight, and after a series that he struggled quite a bit, or I don't want to say struggled, but just didn't play up to the standard that he holds himself to, we know that he's capable of, he closed this series off in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good day to remind everybody that LeBron James is a Los Angeles Laker, only franchise he's ever played for, and that there are these moments. LeBron, honestly, like if this were a regular year, he would be about a month away from starting his 18th NBA season. Like I think this is kind of really nuts, and that's the thing that we haven't really considered about the fact that this season has gone on so long, that he is basically in his 18th year of being in the NBA, and all he did was go out there and score 16 points in the fourth quarter and lead his team to closing out this game and becoming something like 54-0 on the year when they lead after 3 quarters. This team, when they have a lead and when they sense that there's blood in the water, they go for the kill, and they've done it literally every single time that they've been in that situation all season long, and LeBron James is at the heart of that.
Oh, 100%. And before we go any further, I do want to give credit to the Denver Nuggets on their season. Man, that team was annoying to play against because they're a tough team to really put away. Like I was surprised kind of that the Lakers really kind of dominated them in game 1 and blew them out. The Nuggets made it look closer in the end. But games 2 through 5, man, that team just continued to fight back. And Jeremy Grant especially, I did not see a full-on Jeremy Grant series coming, and that guy played really well and can be a free agent. So, I mean, can we get some Jeremy Grant Photoshops ready, or we got to be on top of that. I guess we'll do that after the finals. But, but no, Anthony, going back to NBA Twitter, because I want NBA Twitter to get roasted tonight. It's the fact that these people talk so much trash about the Lakers, a team that has LeBron and Anthony Davis, and like they refuse to learn, right? That, hey, they have LeBron and AD. Maybe we should stop undercutting and underselling this team, because I heard a number of times, oh, it's the refs. Oh, the Nuggets don't have Will Barton. The Lakers just went through the rest of the Western Conference, a Blazers team that everybody said, oh, they're going to give the Lakers problems. They're hot right now. They got Lillard. The Lakers can't guard their two guards. Lakers go through them in 5 games. The Rockets, oh, they play small ball. The Lakers can't handle that. Lakers go through them in 5 games. They go through the Nuggets in 5 games. Like, how special is this run that we're seeing this team? Because I think Pete Zayas, Laker Film Room, pointed out they're only the 3rd team, I think, in the West since 2000 to get to the finals without playing a series longer than 5 games. Like, this is pretty crazy. And then they're doing it without Avery Bradley, by the way.
So the way this offseason, and most, not offseason, but postseasons, this postseason has gone, and for those fans who have been paying attention to the Lakers for a long time, basically those analysis shows make a ton of money saying that whatever team the Lakers are going to play is a lot more dangerous than they actually are, and then downplay them after the Lakers beat them, right? And that's what we've seen here, right? With Portland, this might be the best 8-seed team in the history of basketball because they're getting Yusuf Nurkic back, and they're getting who was the other guy? Zach Collins? Zach Collins, right?
Yeah.
Zach Collins. They're getting Zach Collins back, and the Lakers go through in 5 games. You know, this Houston team, they are super dangerous, and they're going to force the Lakers to play small, and Russell Westbrook might actually be valuable in a postseason 5 games. And then here we are again with Denver. Oh, man, the most resilient team in the NBA, and look what they did to the Clippers in 3 straight games there, and what might they do to they've been the less talented team all year, but they're used to that, and they're ready for these Lakers. 5 games. And it's just, if I could just be honest with you here, Carson Wentz, I got to say, like at some point, you got to start noticing the trend as it's happening and just kind of ignore it, because that's all those shows are hoping to do. Hey, let's get the attention of Lakers haters who, and I hate using the word hater. That's the most homer I'm going to sound. But let's get the attention of those who don't like the Lakers by saying that the Lakers might lose. And then also get the attention of Lakers fans whom you're going to piss off because you're now counting out their team. And let's profit off of both of those things. And then the secret to all of it is because it's analysis TV and prediction TV, and because nobody actually cares about anything that they're watching. They just want the proper back noise or, background noise while they're working at a job they don't like. Like, nobody's going to remember anything that we say. Mm-hmm. So if nobody's going to remember what they're going to say anyway, let's just phase it out right from the beginning.
Another thing too, like, how good is this Lakers team given the fact that Charles Barkley picked them to win and they still won?
and came. Well, you were talking about like the stat that Pete gave, whom you can hear on Locked On Lakers whenever you want to hop on Locked On Lakers. But you gave that stat. Like, this is potentially, right there with that 16-1 Lakers run that they had. Where that was one of the most dominant teams that we have ever seen. And some of the shine is going to fall from it because they didn't go through the Clippers and they didn't go through the Bucks, because both those teams were too big of cowards to actually see the Lakers in the series that they should have. But at the end of the day, like, this is a special team. And when you consider, like, one of the conversations I've been having with a lot of people whom I really respect off of Twitter and in DMs and on text and stuff like that, has been how, like, why is it that the Lakers are the team that are the only team that get to talk about Kobe, and why is it the Lakers are the only team that gets to talk about China, and why is it the Lakers are the only team that gets to talk about this and talk about that? And it's like, the bubble, you're right, every team is trying to overcome the bubble. So in that respect, the Lakers have no more kind of rights to that adversity than anybody else. But to tell me that the organization that lost Kobe Bryant doesn't like didn't feel more grief over losing Kobe Bryant when we know like Jeannie Buss wasn't able to formulate full sentences for like a week from how I heard it. Rob Pelinka went AWOL. They couldn't even find the dude because not only did he lose Kobe Bryant, but he lost his goddaughter, in that helicopter crash. The point I always hear is that, well, none of the Lakers players really knew Kobe personally. It's like, you're right, fine. But Kobe was also the closest thing that LeBron had to appear in the NBA. And all of those players, even while they might not have known Kobe Bryant, well, they are all basketball fans growing up, and all of them idolized Kobe growing up. And on top of that, they're walking through the hallways of Staples Center and the Lakers offices where you had grief counselors showing up to help the Lakers through that experience, or the Lakers organization through that experience. And the fact that the Lakers overcame that and all the stupidity that, frankly, some of that was the Lakers' own bed making in their own regard with China to begin the beginning of the year. And then you go through all of this too, and it's a special team, man. And to overcome all of that and overcome what a lot of people considered a pretty bad offseason after trading for Anthony Davis, to be where the Lakers are right now, it's a special group. It's a special championship that I don't think I'm ever going to forget. It's a fun one. It's a great group of guys that came through, man, in some ways that I don't think any of us really thought they were capable of coming through.
Yeah, this team has really exemplified how important team chemistry is. It can be so cliche sometimes to talk about team chemistry, this and that. I think you saw a pretty big difference with that between the Clippers and Lakers this year. The Clippers were extremely talented, and I don't blame people for thinking that, hey, this team is probably the title favorite because they were really good. But you look at I had a buddy text me after I think it was Game 6 of their series with the Nuggets that was like, these guys don't even look like they enjoy playing basketball sometimes. And it's like, you don't get that with this Lakers team. Like, that is truly a brotherhood in that locker room, and those guys would run through a wall for one another. And it's crazy because there's so many new faces on this team, right? Like, new coach, new coaching staff, all these new players, and these guys would fight to the death for one another. And it's just so cool to see this team come together. And I think that's why this team is so special too. I think it's kind of resonated with the fan base, is that this has just been such a lovable team for this fan base. There's been not really many ups and downs. I mean, obviously, we had the Kobe stuff, and that's just, that has nothing to do with the team, personally. It was just something awful that happened. But when it comes to the team, there's been no drama, any of this stuff. And they've just handled this season so beautifully, even given, the pandemic going on, everything. And obviously every team is going through it, but the Lakers also fought hard to get home court in the Western Conference playoffs and potentially the NBA Finals. And that was wiped away. And they're just still rolling through these teams. And hopefully they can do it in the NBA Finals, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Honi, I'm curious to hear your topic, or your thoughts on this topic. And you're also one of the most quietly petty people that I know. So I also want to hear your thoughts on Lakers Twitter versus NBA Twitter and that whole dynamic.
Another series win in 5, I would say.
I'll start with the nice stuff. The buy-in from this team from day one has been so special, just across the board. Frank Vogel being hired as the third favorite to land the coaching job and just doing an exceptional job all year long. LeBron being basically asked to play starting point guard all year long and doing an exceptional job. And this has just had such a snowball effect that at this point now you got guys like, a KCP who had a much bigger role in some of the worst Lakers teams the last couple of years, now kind of just sitting back and giving some great performances in the playoffs when needed and playing his role. A guy like JaVale McGee, who started every game that he played in the regular season, but now he plays like 2 minutes in a playoff game and he's cheering louder than anybody else on the bench. Just from the top to the bottom of the organization, everybody has bought in on this team from the start. They've known that it's a special group. They've known that they have a really great chance at winning a championship. And I think that's only really raised that level, raised those chances because, man, frankly, everybody's playing their role as great as you can ask them to, and if somebody has an off night, somebody else is almost well, I was going to get to that. I was going to get to, if somebody does have an off night like Kuz did tonight, then somebody else picks up the slack. Like Alex Caruso had a much better game today than he did in the last game, I think. Yeah, nice shirt. I think this team, the specialty of this team is that they have guys that are able to pick up the slack for each other at all times. And that's the stars do that for each other. When LeBron is having a bad game, then Anthony Davis is picking up the slack. When Anthony Davis looks a little more hobbled because of his ankle, LeBron James is scoring 16 points in the fourth quarter. And the role players are doing the exact same thing. It's made watching this team so enjoyable. And not to get too sappy, but this has been a really hard year for a lot of people, including all of us, for a lot of different reasons, both basketball wise in terms of Kobe, who's, an idol to so many people that have followed the Lakers for years, and just life reasons, and watching this team has been a joy almost every single time that they're out there, and watching them play so hard and play so well has been just phenomenal throughout the year.
It's been quite the roller coaster ride, man. From last summer to where we are right now, and hopefully where we are in a week or two or whatever. And hopefully we're going to see the Lakers back at the top of the mountain, as Kobe used to say. It's just unbelievable, man. It's just unreal. And I'm going to do something here that I wish NBA Twitter would do, but they'll never do. I'm going to admit, when it came to my initial perception of this team, I was wrong. I don't want to say I didn't think that this team couldn't win a title, because they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the freaking team. But I also didn't think that they would fight as hard as they did to get home court in the Western Conference. I also didn't expect it to be wiped away by a damn pandemic. But it just goes to show, man, everything that's been thrown at this team this year, they've just found a way to overcome it. And it's just been so beautiful to watch, and such a joy for those of us fans to watch it. And I just really, really hope that this team gets 4 more wins. I don't care who it's against. Obviously, we would love to see the Lakers get that Celtic ass. But I'm so happy with this team. I'm so proud of this team. And I don't know. This is one of my favorite Lakers teams. And that's crazy to say, because all three of us, I mean, Anthony's not close to me and Honi in age, but we
R.I.P. that coffee.
It was perfect timing. I was about to take a sip. That was going to go all over my computer screen.
But we all grew up watching great Lakers teams, right? I don't know. We're kind of seeing in some ways history repeat itself. From 1988 to 2000, the Lakers didn't win a title. They got to the NBA Finals in 91, but didn't win a title in that span. And that was kind of seen as blasphemous for the Lakers, that they went 12 years without a title, because they were always in contention for a title. And the last 10 years, the Lakers haven't even gotten to the finals. Most of the time, they didn't get to the playoffs. And here we are, a new superstar duo. One player that's a little more established, another one that's, Anthony Davis is probably just entering his prime, which is crazy to say.
Wow.
And he's going to his first NBA Finals, hopefully first of many. But remember, he's going to sign with the Bulls. Yeah, man, it's just
that's the Mookie Becks is going to sign back with Boston take of the NBA. Congratulations on trading for Mookie Becks. He's going to go back to Boston, where they love black baseball players.
Where do I even go from here? I mean, I got to hop off. I got a game tomorrow that I got a quarterback for. So we'll get to the chat here in just a second. I want to talk a little bit more about this game though, because coming into this, I was feeling pretty confident about this game, about this team. Honi and I had talked on this pod a couple times about the fatigue factor, right? Obviously, these guys got a whole offseason and then some to kind of rest up and get healthy and all that. But Will Barton's still not healthy. But the Lakers also didn't have Avery Bradley, so I don't want to hear that excuse. But the Nuggets, back-to-back 7-game series where you're down 3-1, coming back from a deficit like that is tough to do one time. It's especially tough to do it twice. And in those Clipper games, those 3 games, I think they were down double digits in all 3 of those games, if I'm not mistaken. So we kind of talked about the fatigue factor in the Lakers taking care of their business. And I'm so annoyed with people like saying the Lakers had an easy path for reason X or reason Y. They're playing the teams that are in front of them. It's not our fault that your darling of a team, the Clippers, or your darling of a team in the Bucks, couldn't get it done. And the Lakers are – that's why I'm kind of hoping Miami gets to the finals, and I want to see the Lakers beat the Heat, because then it's like, all right, well, you can call it an easy path or not, but the Lakers beat the teams that you guys thought were going to meet in the finals. So, but no, this game, man, LeBron's stat line in this game, I knew he was good. Looking at his stat line, I did not realize just how good he was. 38 points, 10 assists, 16 boards, 15 to 25 shooting. Anthony, LeBron James is a Los Angeles Laker.
So on top of that, like he did a lot of that damage without a jumper. Like he only got his jumper back in the fourth quarter, which to me, like on top of all the stuff that we've talked about to this point and about the Lakers moving on to the finals and all of that, like the fact that LeBron started showing confidence in his jumper again is so big. Like he became, this is again all relative, but by LeBron James standards, in some of the series was relatively easy to guard for Jeremy Grant.
Yeah,
like Grant was able to kind of take a step back and just play contained defense because LeBron wasn't going to take that jumper. And in that fourth quarter, you started seeing him, like he missed a 3. And when he missed that 3, he was already going back on defense. And I was able to watch this game with my dad, who's in town for the last week or so. And LeBron missed that 3. And I said, ooh, that's a good miss. You know, obviously you prefer to make it, but the fact that he had enough confidence to think to himself, oh, that felt good. Like the fact that he now remembers what a good jumper feels like, it kind of told me, okay, yeah, he's this close to figuring out that aspect of his game again, because when he figures out that aspect of his game again, he becomes impossible to guard. There's nothing you can do against him. You can back off. He's going to take the jumper. You come up close to him. That's what he wants you to do in the first place.
Yeah.
So him scoring 16 in that fourth quarter and doing it the way that he did from the outside and from the perimeter is just monstrous for whoever the Lakers might face in the next round. And like it's insane. He's been in the league for 17 years. In 10 of those seasons, he's been in the NBA Finals. That's what?
And remember, if he went to the Western Conference, there's no way he'd get back to the NBA Finals.
No way whatsoever. But like the fact that he's been there that often, and like we're talking about, so they were talking about Jamal Murray, who I hope is going through a decent leg amputation after that game based on the way that TNT was covering him. but they're talking about like a hobbled Jamal Murray and a Nikola Jokic who is struggling through foul trouble and a Paul Millsap who was just gutting out punch after punch after punch to his face, according to the way he was playing out there and flopping around.
Paul Millsap was 1 of 8 from the field tonight.
I want to see all of those players in year 17 of their careers. I want to see every single player who is not LeBron James in year 17 of their career out there and see what that might look like. It for damn sure isn't going to look like 38, 10, and 16.
I think in year 17, Paul Millsap will still only have 1 win over LeBron in the playoffs.
That might be the biggest win of the postseason. The fact that Paul Millsap is no longer 0 against LeBron in the playoffs.
He's probably honestly on the team bus, like going to the airport with a cigar. Like
yeah, yeah. He shows back up to the Nuggets locker room asking for his own champagne. Like, you guys, this is like the best feeling I've ever had in a postseason.
The Lakers are all celebrating under confetti tonight. And you look off to the side, and Paul Millsap's just sitting there soaking it all in.
He's doing snow angels.
No, it's even better. After all of the confetti has fallen and all of the Lakers have left the court and everybody else have left the court, Millsap's going to go back out there, and those guys who are sweeping up the confetti, he's going to ask, like, hey, guys, can I have some? Can I have some of that confetti? Just really quick. And he's going to grab some. He's going to throw some up in the air. He's going to fall on his head. And he's going to walk off the court with a single purple piece of confetti sticking to the top of his head, with his bottle of champagne in one hand and his cigar in the other hand, and a tooth missing based off of the way that he was falling all over the court tonight.
I just want to know how you got your hands on some Paul Millsap fan fiction. But...
really makes me wonder what's going on inside of Anthony's brain all the time. I don't want to know, though. I really don't. So
it's a lot of that. Just nonstop Paul Millsap situations.
All right. Back to the game here. Honi, the fact that I'm looking at this box score, and it was kind of something I noticed, like KCP only got 2 shots in this game, and we've talked about him probably consistently being the Lakers' 3rd best player in this playoff run, because he hasn't really been that up and down. Tonight, just the shot attempts weren't there for him. In a lot of cases, Danny Green started very poorly. I thought defensively he played a pretty solid game, made some good plays. Finally got a couple of threes to go. But looking at this box score, I mean, LeBron has, like we said, 38, 16, and 10. Anthony Davis has 27 points. Outside of that, I mean, Danny Green had 11 points on 3 of 7 shooting. Caruso had 11 points on 5 of 7 shooting. Those are the only guys in double figures for the Lakers. What does it say about this team that we didn't really get like that third guy to really step up and bring that scoring punch? And they still led most of the way in this game, ended up beating a Western Conference finalist by double digits.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. It's one, that there's enough depth on this team that even without a third player, there's enough people stepping up to make, smaller contributions here and there. Like you said, Danny Green's defense, I thought, was incredible. He had a couple of massive blocks. He had one where he blocked Jokic and then sprinted to the other side of the court to contest the Monte Morris 3 that rimmed out. Alex Caruso in the first half was just cutting all over the place. It was like a wet dream of every person that only thinks white players are gritty. And, I think everybody is able to contribute a little bit, even if nobody's hitting a bunch of threes and scoring 20 points to help them out. And then on the other side of it is that they got 2 top 5-ish players in the league, and the greatest player of all time, that at any moment, yes, exactly, that at any moment they can take over a game. They can carry the load offensively, and if they're not getting enough help from the other guys in terms of scoring, that they're going to get it. They're going to get to the rim at will. They're going to draw fouls. They're going to score basically everything that they're given. And there's instances where when LeBron puts his head to it, there's literally nothing you can do against him. And I think that was exemplified in that play where Jamal Murray tried to foul him ahead of a layup, and LeBron literally looked at the ref in midair to yell "and one" while he's scoring a layup. That is better than the Michael Jordan switching his hand layup. I'm calling it right here. That is a much more iconic play in NBA history.
No, that was great. My dad and I was watching the game with my dad as well, and we both just turned to each other to laugh. In midair, he's like looking at the ref to yell like, just
the best part of that, like, we're on video right now, right? We're live.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
People can see me. Oh shit.
Yeah.
But like LeBron is like going like this, right? He's like going and one, and you can actually see as he's going and one, you can actually see Jokic's shoulders go like, ugh.
His body language all night was kind of hilarious to watch, to be completely honest. Like, I don't know. I don't want to talk too bad like about this Nuggets team, because like I said, I thought they had a great run this postseason. They took out the Clippers, which gave us a historic night on NBA Twitter. And yeah, no, they're a hell of a team. They were better than I anticipated. I thought the Lakers I picked Lakers in 5, but I thought it would be an easier 5 than what it was. And yeah, so again, credit to them. But let's look ahead, shall we? Let's look ahead to the NBA Finals, mainly just because I wanted to say that. Anthony, is there a matchup Lakers fans should be kind of hoping for this series? Obviously, like, it would be perfect to end this season beating the Celtics. Was there kind of a team that you prefer to play based on kind of a matchup perspective?
I think you would rather go. I mean, either way, the Celtics and Heat are basically like the Spider-Man pointing meme, right? Like of teams, like they're basically just, they have an undersized center. Obviously, Bam is significantly better than Daniel Tice. Even despite all of the grit that Celtics fans love talking that Tice brings to the table. You have young core players on both teams, Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and Jason Tatum, who is somehow younger than both of those guys, according to Celtics Twitter again. It's just, I would prefer to see the Celtics because I think the Lakers can beat either team. And so if you're going to win a championship, and the other thing too is if the Lakers play the Celtics, they will be playing a team that is coming off of a much longer series than chances are they will be if they're playing the Heat. LeBron also loves to torment the Celtics fan base, which is fun in its own right. So there isn't really a team that I would prefer to play here, just because both teams offer a lot of the same. So all things being equal, bring that Celtics ass.
That's pretty much how I feel. Like, I don't have any preference. My thing with this Lakers team is just beat whoever's in front of you. Like, who cares? If you're holding up the Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of the day, I don't care who you got to go through. All you can do is play the teams that are in front of you. Just beat them. Show that you're the best team. And let NBA Twitter have its meltdown. But I will say a Bill Simmons meltdown post Lakers team beating a Celtics team in the finals would be glorious.
Wait, people still listen to that guy? Like, that's still a thing?
I let my timeline go listen to it and then clip the bits that I want to hear about him just throwing a tantrum. And then that's basically my extent. He doesn't get my viewership count, but I still hear what he has to say.
I do think the one basketball point to be made about the two teams is that I think Miami can get hotter. So both teams are going to rely on variance to beat the Lakers, right? They're versions of the Rockets. And I think Miami has a higher ceiling than Boston does, which is why they keep beating the Celtics in these closer games. So if you're actually looking for legitimate reasons there, you don't want to go up against a hot Tyler Hero. You don't want to go up against a hot Duncan Robinson. For some reason, Jay Crowder became a bigger Ray Allen out there in the bubble.
Yeah.
So you don't want to go up against a team that can get as hot as Miami can. So if I had to choose a team that I would rather face on top of everything that it would mean to beat the Celtics en route to tying the Celtics, not counting M. Brown on Twitter called them the Jim Crow titles.
Oh my goodness.
Tying the Celtics, beating the Celtics would be fantastic. But if you're looking on actual reasons to find a team in terms of matchups, I think you would rather see the Celtics just because I don't think they have a ceiling high enough to really challenge the Lakers.
Yeah. My viewpoint is that the Heat are a super try-hard team, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. They bust their asses on the court every single game, and I think that's a testament to Jimmy Butler, especially as the star player that really does that. And they will be in a lot of close games, and they've been really great in close games all playoffs long. So I think I want a more comfortable series. It makes it a lot easier in terms of the work that we do. To be prepared ahead of time. We can start making our graphics for a sweep, and we can make a lot of jokes at Marcus Smart flopping his way into a 4-game loss in the NBA Finals.
Plus, I mean, if I would prefer the Lakers to play the team that doesn't have the better coach in that series, so I'd rather have the Celtics.
Yeah, I'd much rather go against Pete Buttigieg than Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, but Butler Holzer doesn't really scare me all that much.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It would be so fitting, right, to end this season off, and the Lakers are obviously. I mean, you see it with Frank Vogel, like in his post game talks to the team, like they're breaking the huddle with Mamba on 3. Like they obviously want to win this thing for Kobe, like in Kobe's memory, and honor him with a championship. And man, no better way to make him proud than to beat the Celtics in the finals. We got to see if they get there. If not, then let's go after the Heat. And really, I feel like it's crazy. Like there's been a couple instances where people really wanted to see a Lakers Heat finals, and like it never happened. I think obviously when Shaq got traded to Miami, the people didn't want to see the Lakers like get good enough to get to the finals. But if they did, like a Lakers Heat finals where it was Shaq against Kobe would have been just huge for the league. But then it was Kobe against LeBron. Never got to see that. So it would be kind of funny if we get like a Jimmy Butler Heat team against the Lakers. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how that series plays out, and we'll be here to do a series preview pod whenever we find out who the Lakers are playing. But Honi, how important is it for the Lakers? And we've talked about this with their previous series, but how important is it for this team to not only, just finish off this series and not give the Nuggets hope, but to win and give at least an extra day of rest for Anthony Davis and his ankle, and just the team in general to rest up and get healthy and to go hard after 4 more wins.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's all adding up over the course of this entire playoffs. Lakers have had the rest advantage, I think, every single series so far. Obviously, the first 2 didn't really amount to much in the first game, at least. They ended up losing those. But I think it's huge in terms of just getting these guys healthy, making sure LeBron is rested after having to carry the scoring load a lot tonight, making sure AD's ankle is getting the treatment it needs. And they've been very fortunate to not really have any severe injuries this postseason run. A lot of times that doesn't happen to you in the playoffs, and guys get hurt a lot. Yeah, knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
So finishing out the series quickly is, again, just lower the odds of anybody getting hurt and go into the finals with a pretty much fully healthy team at full strength, minus Avery Bradley, obviously, and really take it to either the Heat or to the Celtics in game 1, because you're going to be well rested and ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. All right, before we dive into some viewer questions in the chat, I'm just going to throw it back to you guys. You have anything else you want to add before we dive into that?
I think the thing that needs to be said, repeated, and repeated ad nauseum is really just having gone through what the Lakers went through these last like 7 years or so. Like LeBron, I thought the most interesting thing that was said tonight was LeBron saying that like this doesn't happen all the time for every team, and LeBron James of all people saying this, right? For whom this does happen most seasons for LeBron, but for Lakers fans, I think we kind of took for granted success, right? It just happened because we root for the Lakers, and winning just happens because you're the Lakers. And I think Magic Johnson, his entire tenure speaks exactly to that. This idea that Magic felt like he was going to be successful because he was Magic Johnson and because he ran the Lakers. Like, it takes putting the work in. It takes thinking outside the box. It takes, because nobody thought that the 2 center system was going to go in the Lakers' favor, right? But it actually wound up being a bit of a market inefficiency that kept AD fresher throughout the year to be able to do what he's done in these playoffs. So it takes putting in that work. It takes committing to doing things that you aren't necessarily comfortable doing. And then when all those things come to fruition, there's immense value in stopping and smelling the roses. Yes, the job is not done. There's that famous Kobe Bryant, right? Where he's like, why aren't you smiling? He's like, because the job isn't done. And he's right. Although I'm like 85% sure he exited that press conference and was just like laughing at people, like lapping up that entire deal. But I think there's a lot of value. Like I'm sitting here tonight. I'm recording this in a house that podcasting about the Lakers over the the worst stretch in Lakers history has helped purchase. I'm watching this with my dad, and my daughter is sleeping in the room, 2 rooms down from where we're watching the game. My wife is sitting there, and none of those things were the case when I started like rambling about this team.
Mm-hmm.
And now with tonight, it's a lot more surreal a moment, and it's a moment that I'm really stopping to cherish a lot more, because like in a year like this year, you never know when it's all going to be taken away from you. Just ask the Bryant family, man. Like you just never know when this stuff. You can't take any of this for granted. So for those of you who are watching out there and you watched the Robert Sacre years, you watched the Gian Leon years, you sat through the Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov contracts, and you got to this point, fuck Twitter. When they tell you that you shouldn't celebrate the fact that it's been so long, screw all of them. Pour an extra glass of wine, pour some champagne, light up a victory cigar, enjoy this moment, because it doesn't come all the time. It isn't promised. So just hold it, grasp onto it, enjoy it tonight. And then tomorrow, for the actual Lakers who have actual work to do, get right back to it and knock it out so that we can actually all enjoy the main event together.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. The thing that I really liked about what the team had to say after this game, as they've got, the Western Conference champion hats on, the shirts on, there's confetti falling, they're holding up the Western Conference trophy. The message was consistent throughout the team. This is great. Like, this is great, but the job isn't finished. Like, we still got work to do. So it's one of those things. I'm sure the guys will go celebrate it tonight. They'll enjoy it tonight. They deserve it. Like, they deserve to share this moment together and go have some fun tonight. But it comforts me knowing that, I kind of always thought, like, the 2009 Lakers and 2010 Lakers, when they won the West, you could just tell by their demeanor that it was like, this is cool, but this is not what we're after. Mm-hmm. And I get that vibe.
I don't think any of them actually touched the trophy tonight.
Yeah. It was still a business-like approach. This team is just locked in, and when this team's locked in, man, I still have a hard time seeing anybody beat them 4 times out of 7. I would have said that even if the Clippers would have not choked away a 3-1 series lead. It's important to remind people that they did that. But this team is special, man. It's special, and I hope we get to see 4 more wins and really get to appreciate them for, I think, the way that they deserve to be appreciated.
How excited are you to be carried to a Super Bowl of sorts by a more talented player who backs you up?
Still a championship ring. Honi, your thoughts?
I'll just add one thing. So obviously you guys were among the group that started Lakers Outsiders. I joined, I think, a few months afterwards, in September, so almost exactly 5 years ago. And I was looking this up. The very first thing I ever wrote on Lakers Outsiders was about Julius Randle being the future of the franchise. And so,
dude, remember they drafted him and he broke his leg like 15 minutes into the season?
First game.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, but that only gave us the Jordan Clarkson future of the franchise.
Well, and then he didn't play like the first half of the year because Byron Scott was so in love with Ronnie Price.
Shoe throwing Ronnie Price.
So these last 5 years, obviously, from a basketball perspective, for a lot of it have been abysmal. But it's also been really incredibly fun at times as well. We've met a lot of great people, both in terms of our site, the people that are still here, a lot of people that have joined our site and left to do bigger and better things. And, a lot of great people that have followed our site for 5 years. There was somebody in our mentions today when we said that we were going live talking about how we were the first Lakers podcast they listened to at 4 a.m. in their country. And I'm like, that's insane that people would ever
Listen
ever
to
do
you.
that.
I agree, man. It's insane.
I don't even listen to me. Can you hear how I'm rambling? But basically, my point is that we're all here because of our love of the Lakers. And whether it's been bad or good years, it's just been a really incredible journey. And I'm super happy that we get to all kind of share this, hopefully, championship together and really celebrate it together, which is something that we have not been able to do ever.
Yeah, it's a testament to me at least how likable this team is, how much fun they've been throughout the season, and it's really brought Lakers Twitter together, and it's really shown that NBA Twitter is not prepared for a Lakers championship. Like, we're 4 wins away from NBA Twitter just going into a full-on meltdown. I also want to end on a random stat that I just thought of. Western Conference guards in the playoffs were 0-6 total after they danced in the Lakers' faces. I just wanted to throw that out there. Lillard, Westbrook didn't dance, but he just yelled at children in the audience.
Toddlers. I'll add one
Avery
more
was
thing.
sitting there like, what did I do?
People should know Avery is not Avery Bradley, but it's his daughter. I'll add one more note. There was a certain person on NBA Twitter, and he needs to get called out every single time on this podcast for saying Anthony Davis would be played off the court in the NBA playoffs.
I'm still waiting for that to happen, so we'll see. All right, let's dive into this stream chat here. The first thing that was brought up on the chat, other than everybody kind of saying hi, which hello everybody. For those of you that have been here from the start, I apologize if this has been all over the place, but it's been really, really fun. Somebody wanted to really make note that LeBron had more points in the fourth quarter, 16, to close out Denver than Kawhi, 14, had all of Game 7 versus Denver. Also, LeBron had more points in the last 4 minutes, 11, than Paul George had all of Game 7, 10.
Incredible stuff.
It's important to remember that stuff.
I'll add to that Frank Vogel has made the NBA Finals before Paul George.
Ooh.
Finals trips over trips to the strip club. Can we get that? Can we get that?
Get it on a t-shirt.
Billboard made?
Put the billboard up.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Winning wings over lemon pepper wings. Let's keep this shit going.
Dude, you can make a whole thread on Twitter over something like that. It's beautiful. We had somebody
would retweet most of it too.
We had somebody say, "Man, we were praying for ping pong balls." It's pretty crazy to think of how different things are 5 years later. We were like sweating bullets on draft lottery night because the Lakers might lose their draft picks, to like me sweating bullets because they have a 6-point lead with 2.5 minutes left of a closeout game in the Western Conference Finals. Crazy how different things are.
Yeah.
I think there was. I didn't feel fully comfortable until the clock ticked under a minute and the Lakers had like a double-digit lead. That was the only time I felt like comfortable in the Lakers being able to close that thing out.
Mm. Yeah,
I think I was weirdly too comfortable this game. I was like, they'll finish this out. I believe in them.
Oh, bro.
I also like how NBA Twitter was all up in arms and Nikola Jokic getting into foul trouble when he himself was like, "No, I was committing those."
Like
intentional foul. How do you do that when you've been in foul trouble all series long just to prevent one layup in the first quarter?
Which,
you guys, it's an NBA conspiracy. Just ask Ben Dubose, who's probably still out there saying that the Rockets should be in the finals right now.
my favorite
He's
thing
also
is
still out there saying the Astros fans should give standing ovations to racist players.
Yeah, right.
my favorite thing is calling them HuAnon Twitter.
There were people proposing rule changes today because Jokic was in foul trouble.
We were talking about it before we went on live. Like, the TNT broadcast is like going off on like, oh, here's Jokic in foul trouble with his 3 fouls. As on the screen that we're watching, Anthony, you pointed this out. Anthony Davis walking to the bench, 3 fouls.
The Nuggets are really about to lose. Their season's about to end because their star player has 3 fouls. Anthony Davis is like walking to the bench, like annoyed at his 3rd foul.
And he didn't commit any intentional fouls to get to 3 fouls, by the way.
You earned those bad boys.
They called a flagrant foul on Dwight Howard for boxing out.
He had a couple of those in this series. There was one he did that to Jokic, where Jokic just wasn't ready to get boxed out, and Dwight just threw his hip into him to box him out and knocked him over, and Dwight got called for a foul. Dwight got called for like a handful of fouls in this series for simply hitting the weight room too much.
Paul Millsap kept like getting shot like across the. There's a sniper posted up in that small ass arena.
But
Flagrant foul on Dwight.
Those fouls were both on KCP, who weighs like 150 pounds.
You get. There was one play where like Chris Webber was like, KCP picks up Paul Millsap and tells him, "Good sportsmanship, bro." And I was like, yeah, that's what he was saying, for sure.
All right, back to the chat. We had one person say, instead of getting mad at us for being so spoiled with success, other teams should just get better.
The old stop throwing meatballs if you don't want us dropping our bat thing.
If I were NBA teams, I would simply get to the finals.
Yeah. I would simply, just get the best players. And that was like a thing earlier in the year. Like, oh, the Lakers are only winning because they have the best players.
Well, you see, Mike Tyson was only winning fights because he could throw the best punches.
Or he could bite the opponent's ear off.
Lost that one, unfortunately.
But still, he won the night. Like, if Twitter was around back then, he would have easily won the night.
You guys are gonna laugh at me for this, but I can remember exactly where I was for that fight as it was happening. I remember like, oh man, yeah.
Mike Tyson only lost that fight because he was in foul trouble.
That was actually what happened to Jamal Murray's leg. In this, Mike Tyson came and bit it off, according to TNT.
I'm so glad. Like I was very upset that we didn't get Kevin Harlan for this series. Number one, and number two, I know we're gonna get Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson trying to have a podcast during the NBA Finals, but
no, they're gonna be like they're gonna be vying for Frank Vogel's job.
We just need Jeff Van Gundy to go back to Houston, like there's been rumor of, and have Mark Jackson go be his lead assistant.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, is there any number of places that they could go? We need Stan Van Gundy back on these calls.
With Kevin Harlan. Like, to me, that's going to be TNT's best duo. But
you could even live tweet the games while he's doing the show.
That'd be great. That's like next level. That's next level broadcasting is broadcaster like saying something and then tweeting something about it right after.
Somebody's like, Stan Van Gundy got that one wrong. He like quote tweets him. Go fuck yourself.
We did get a question, Honi, I'll throw it to you first, about Kyle Kuzma's play on this series and kind of what you thought about
Who?
Kyle Kuzma.
Who?
I'm glad you're throwing it to me first because I'll be the nicer person here. He seemed to be very much in his head in this series, which is a little odd considering the previous series where he still wasn't scoring well, but he seemed to be playing more confident and contributing a lot more defensively, especially. He had a lot of pretty bad mistakes the last couple of games defensively, especially on his closeouts and being kind of out of control on those. I do think there were stretches in this game where it seemed like he was kind of picking it up, where he was making some good plays and making cuts and making good passes. But then, shit hit the fan again in the third quarter, and he was pretty bad in that little run that the Nuggets made. I still believe in Kuzma in general, and think I think he is a good good role player when he does actually play his role and he doesn't try to do too much. And I think it's sort of a confidence issue for him in both ways, whether it's him being too overconfident or being too not confident in himself.
I'll be right back. I got to go grab some popcorn before Anthony starts to chime in on this. This
Yeah,
segment.
you know what? Anthony, have at it. I'm done.
Kyle Kuzma's career has been defined by a couple high stretches and mostly low points, right? Like he completely outdid expectations his rookie year because of where he was drafted. Then he had expectations his second year, and then he outdid expectations in the bubble to this point because of how poorly he played before the bubble kicked off, and looked significantly better. He was good, to be clear. He was objectively good. He was a good player. But that was also, like, in terms of sample sizes, significantly smaller than the sample size that pointed to him to, not being very good. So it might have just been an outlier run of, like, really hot shooting for him. The other thing, too, is that, Honi, you mentioned him, like, not or being in his own head and the lack of confidence. And the thing that I knew that he was going to struggle in this series as soon as you started seeing him kind of tweak his shot, his release point, his rhythm going into it, the way that he was standing going into it. Mm-hmm. And like once he returns to being that player, he's not a useful player. He's just not. And he's somebody who the Lakers need to be good. They might not need him as much in this next series just because of where, like, they might not need him offensively as much in this next series. But, like, what really, really concerned me was how poorly he was playing defensively on Michael Porter Jr., who, like, Nuggets fans will tell you is like is Kevin Durant reincarnate, who he might actually believe in reincarnation. But watching him struggle there, and then a hobbled Jamal Murray was able to go by Kuzma at will in tonight's game. That stuff really adds up to tell me that, like, can the Lakers survive minutes that Kuzma plays next series? That's basically how I'm looking at it. Like, the bar is now, which usually means, by the way, that he's about to step over the bar that is now laying on the ground. Like, the expectations are back down low, and maybe he can overcome those lowered expectations now. But I think at this point, as much as we want to talk ourselves into Kuzma, and as much as those flashes make us want to say that this guy might be a useful NBA player, we just have to come to grips with the fact that, like, this is what late first rounders look like. Sometimes they look really good, and sometimes they are really bad. And for the most part, they tend to be slightly below average NBA players. And I think that's kind of where we're going to wind up here with Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, I mean, they're not all going to be Jimmy Butlers, right? Like,
yeah,
those guys are the anomalies, the outliers that you hope you get, but odds are you're just not. So hopefully Kuzma kind of settles back in, because I thought he was playing good basketball, at the start of this whole bubble process, and at times in those first two series where he just kind of settled in and said, all right, we need you to play good defense, we need you to cut off the ball, and we need you to hit spot up threes. That's pretty much it. Like, they need a 3-and-D type of guy out of him. And I thought there were a lot of times he did that fairly well. And I was like, all right, this is like a new version of Kuzma. This is kind of what this team needs. But in this series, man, I mean, he had some moments where the offense was going a little bit, but overall, yeah, it just, especially today, just looked like he was totally lost. Like, he was just overthinking things. Anthony, you mentioned kind of like the mechanics and stuff of like his shot. I noticed with one of the threes in the second half on kind of the right wing, I swear he took like 4 steps before he shot it, because he like shuffled his feet and and launched it and missed. So he's got to get out of his own head, to settle back in, keep it, like, with him, you have to keep the game simple for him. I think if he's trying to do too much, that's when he starts to get in trouble. Keep it simple, like, play good defense. The defensive awareness really lacked in this series, and then the closeouts were just terrible. I mean, just letting guys go right by, or he would close out way too hard to where they can just pump fake, and Michael Porter Jr. has a wide open look at the three, and there's only one type of shot that guy has never liked. So We had to get that joke in. We've got it in after
that
every
tweet is
game
all
of this
for continued.
series.
Well, like so Gary, you're wearing you've taken up golf, right? You're starting to play more golf. You're wearing a ping hat as you're recording this. I myself grew up playing golf. I actually like coach golf for a little bit too.
I don't play golf. I'm brown.
I'm also brown. Jesus. But the best golfer in the history of the sport is brown. But so Gary, the way that golf usually goes for players who aren't actually good at the sport is like you'll have a good couple rounds, and then you'll start tweaking your game to figure out ways that you can, turn an 80 into a 79, and then a 79 into a 76, right? And what usually happens there is that you start actually overthinking. So that 80 becomes an 83, and then 83 becomes an 85, and then before you know it, you're back up like in the 90s. And I think that's kind of what we saw here with Kuzma. And what usually, like the way that I'll usually go is if I'm shooting at 80 and I see that inflate up to a 90, I take like a couple weeks off. Now Kuzma can't do this. He took this series off, so maybe that's what he was doing. But like I'll take a couple weeks off or a month off, and I'll just completely simplify the game back to shoulder to shoulder on the swing. And don't overthink yourself around the green, and just get back to just playing average golf. Just playing, turn those pars that you were once unhappy with, and because of your unhappiness with those pars, those became bogeys and double bogeys. Let's just get back to playing par golf. Let's just let's just simplify the game and make it to where you're more comfortable with it. And I think Kuzma, in this series was somebody who was playing good basketball and tried to turn that good basketball into great basketball. Yeah. And as a result, turn that good basketball into horrendous basketball.
I'm now convinced that Anthony was watching me play golf like this entire year, because he basically summed up the entire year for me, where I was like playing what I thought was pretty well, like shooting in like the low 80s. And then, you try and tweak a few things. I'm trying to, hit the ball a little farther with my driver and, a little straighter more consistently. And next thing I know, that score starts to climb a little bit. But no, I think that's a good analogy. And I think that's kind of what it is with Kuzma. Like it's got to be a very simplistic style of play for him. And that's just what it is. I mean, you've got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the team mixed in with a lot of veteran guys that have played in these moments before. Like, and this is new to you. And like in this game, the moment looked a little too big for him at times. And really, most of the series kind of like he just looked lost. And, I have faith in him. I have faith that he can bounce back in the next series and he can have some moments that he can be a very impactful contributor for this team. But you just got to settle down and play simple basketball. So, all right, I'm going to dive into one more question. I've taken note of some of your guys' questions because we've gotten a lot of them, and this pod is over an hour already. I kind of anticipated this to be a long one, but it's been really, really fun. Dylan Heiser, by the way, says, get that Celtic ass. So I wanted to make sure. One question I thought was interesting, and Honi, I'll give this one to you first because you've been quiet over there for a little bit. Also, Bever said, basically wanted to salute you that she can see, or he or she can see that you're sweating again, and thank you for your sacrifice for turning your fan and air conditioning off so that we can hear you better. But the question was,
I do it for my fan and for my fans.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Anthony first. Anthony, we got to ask, who would be your MVP so far for the Lakers in this playoff run?
It's got to be Honi, to be turning off that fan.
For his fans,
being able to hear him, it's been huge. Look, it has to be LeBron, right? Like they are not the team that they could possibly be when he doesn't have it going. And the fact that the Lakers were able to win in games that he didn't look like himself, like he wasn't able to get to the rim, he wasn't able to take advantage of some of the switches. He didn't look confident shooting the basketball, but he was still able to become, to still be maybe not the typical impact player that he normally is, but the fact that he was still able to not be awful out there, like we saw Jokic in this game not really have it going, but he was awful. Like by the time he came back into the game, and even late in game 4, because of his foul trouble, he was so far in his head not trying to foul out that he was not a very good player out there. And the fact that LeBron, being the great player that he is, was able to be a plus player in aggregate and still able to put the Lakers in a situation where Davis could put them over the top, like that to me is what you ask for a player. And by the way, again, his 17th season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Honi, go ahead.
I'll give the devil's advocate response because I do agree that it is LeBron. But I'll give the devil's advocate response for Alex Caruso. Or for Anthony Davis. I mean, sorry.
No need to apologize.
Anthony Davis is averaging 29-9 in the playoffs, continuing his incredible run that he's had every time he's been in the playoffs, which obviously hasn't been very many times because he played in a sorry-ass franchise for the first few years of his career. But that dude, I think offensively he's been really great recently, and he's had some struggle nights, kind of the same as LeBron. He's had some off nights. But he's improved immensely in terms of how he handles double teams, which is something that teams thought they were going to be able to do against him all playoffs long. And it started out as being an actually a great way to limit the Lakers offense. Right now, the Nuggets tried doing it early in this game, and he was going against it easily. He was either passing it out quickly or making a move so quickly that they couldn't bring out the double team. And he was incredible in that sense. And then defensively, man, the Lakers defense is just so incredible, and it all starts with AD being able to blow up things both on the perimeter and in the interior. He's just an immense shot blocker. He changes shots at the rim. He can guard 1 through 5, and especially in that Rocket series, I think he was just such a huge presence defensively that really impacted a great offensive team. That I think, as much as I do agree that LeBron is the MVP, I don't think it's that far off in terms of how AD's been playing.
I think it's 1A, 1B, between those two guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I'm gonna disagree with both of you and just say they're co-MVPs.
Wow.
I thought you were gonna go with playoff Rondo. Like I thought you were gonna say I'm gonna disagree with both of you and say it's playoff Rondo.
At times. Sometimes, yeah, it is. Like in the first half when he turned into Steph Curry, yeah, he was pretty great. But no, man, I mean, that's the beauty of this team, though, is that they have different guys that step up in different moments. And, I think a lot of people ask going into the season, who's the Lakers' third best player, right? Is it Danny Green? Because, he gets this contract where he makes $15 million a year, which doesn't look like super great right now, but he's had his moments where he steps up. Sometimes it's KCP, it's Caruso, it's playoff Rondo. The third guy is by committee, and I think that's how this team prefers it to be because their two superstars are that great that, like, we said this, I think, Honi, after game 3 or maybe it was game 4, that it seems like they're keying in on let's slow down LeBron by packing the paint. It's like, okay, well now Anthony Davis is just going to light you up, right? Like, I don't know how like you game plan for a team like that has 2 top 5 players in the league right now. And then a supporting cast that, although nobody jumps out on a consistent basis, they can all come at you at once, or it's just enough guys to give them enough support to beat you as well. And that's just another reason that makes this team as great as it has been this year. And I'm curious to see where this team kind of gets ranked, like historically among like champions, if they are able to get 4 more wins, because I think this team has not been given the proper credit by NBA pundits all year. I mean, some have, not all of them, but people have gone out of their way to try and convince themselves and convince others that this team is not as good as it actually is, and they just keep winning games, they keep winning series, and hopefully they win an NBA championship. So,
look, they're doing all this as underdogs. It's one of the greatest stories in the sports history.
I'm just saying, if the Heat beat the Celtics, the Lakers, according to 538, the Lakers are underdogs again. So
all over again.
This is I don't even want to say Butler because Gordon Hayward and Brad Stevens were on those teams, and they fell short twice. But yeah, I don't know. It's like Villanova back in the day when they were like an 8 or 9 seed, or is George Mason going to the Final Four? I mean, this is just a true Cinderella story.
I mean, if the Lakers play the Celtics, right, it would be like, Brad Stevens and Gordon Hayward looking at Butler all over again. Like, they'd be facing Butler. They'd be facing their old school. Crazy.
They're facing Butler right now. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, they go from Jimmy Butler to Butler University.
Oh, that's the universe just coming full circle, It works in mysterious ways. All right, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, we do these live after the games. I know at least Honi and I will be on to do an NBA Finals preview. Man, that feels good to say. I don't know what day that'll be. It might be tomorrow night, might be Monday night. Who knows? We don't know exactly when that series is going to end, so we'll have to just kind of play that by ear. But we'll get there. I mean, NBA Finals is coming up most likely Wednesday, assuming Miami wins. If not, I think it's Friday is what they said if it goes 7 games. So, but we're days away from the Lakers being back in the NBA Finals, and it feels just sweet to say that. So thank you guys so much again for listening and joining us in the chat. For those questions that we didn't get to, I apologize. I have taken note, and I think I basically kind of skipped over the questions that I think will come in handy in that NBA Finals preview pod. So be sure to tune in for that, and we will get back to those questions. But as always, guys, we'll be doing these live on YouTube, on twitch.tv/Lakers Outsiders, on Facebook as well. And then, of course, I'll edit these after the fact and throw them up on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, they'll be up there. If you want to hear more from Anthony, which I don't know why you would, but you can subscribe to Locked On Lakers as well. He's got Pete Zayas over there, so I guess that's one reason.
Exactly.
Damn, Anthony, I didn't know that you were still here. But no, thank you guys so much for joining me, Anthony. It's always a pleasure to have you on these things, as much as I hate to admit that. But we went back to our roots a little bit. We got to get the other 3 knuckleheads on this thing, especially if the Lakers win a title, and just throw it back to the old days.
So by 3 knuckleheads, you're talking Harrison, Ryan, and Matt's teddy bear, right?
Yes. Matt's not allowed. There's too much Danny Green slander
just
going
for
on.
teddy bear.
And he roots for a college team that doesn't play man-to-man defense. So I can't.
Did you ever have a kid with the Robert Upshaw?
Oh boy.
No, Robert Sacre and I bought a house together. It was great. Life is fantastic. You guys don't know this, but Avery's middle name is Robert Sacre. Avery Robert Sacre Irwin.
That is a major throwback reference there. Who's softer as a center, Peeps or Nikola Jokic? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Respect to the Nuggets. But no, we're getting out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you guys for listening. But as always, until next time, this is Gary Kester with Anthony Irwin and Honi Ahmadian and the Lakers Outsiders signing off.
Shout out Team Tank.
Yeah, buddy.